Jinwoo was a streamer obsessed with a broken game, a game so difficult that almost anybody was playing anymore. He had to spend 11 years of his life studying the test tower to finally conquer it. It has been said that if anyone could make it, the game would become real. Jinwoo was thinking about how to get a job as streamer. He was 27 years old and he couldn't keep living with a $500 wage monthly. Nevertheless, some news alarmed the world. The test tower had appeared in real life. A state window was visible for all humans, and said that they should clear the first floor under the next 90 days or they would die. No other word was necessary. Jinwoo knew what he had to do. He had to level up, and the first thing he'd do is go and search for the mangrove of greed, a tree which its fruits grants extra stats points to the ones who consume them. The problem is that they only grow 4 fruits and there were a lot of people waiting. Plus there is this guy called Lee Jong-soo, a bastard who used to take advantage over the small streamers, and he used to exploit them. He wanted to get close to Jinwoo and pretend to be a good friend, but Jinwoo makes clear that things have changed. While they were fighting, the others took advantage and took the 4 apples, and here gets revealed Jinwoo's true objective. It never was about the apples. He was trying to find a more valuable object, and the only way to find it was to defeating that monster. Everyone were gone. They knew that defeating it will be impossible. Some have died more than 50 times trying, yet Jinwoo takes advantage of Lee Jong-soo's greed and convince him to stay. He says that as long as they attack it together at the same time, they could defeat it easily, but when Jinwoo gave the signal to attack, he was betrayed. Nevertheless, that's exactly what he was waiting for, since the tree always attacks the ones who are further away. With this distraction, it was no problem for him to defeat the monster. It finally got the tree orb, a broken object that raises his stat points by 12 with no level up needed. Currently he was the strongest level 1 by being the first one to defeat 1 mangrove of greed. Jinwoo could enter the Hall of Fame, yet he decided to keep his identity hidden to avoid troubles. When the achievement appeared, everybody thought it was a matter of luck. But when they watched the video, they felt chills for how good he was. And by the way, in case you didn't notice, Jinwoo activated anonymous mode so nobody could see his face or name. A lot comments from corporations on his former streaming channel offered him ridiculous amount of money, but Jinwoo doesn't want to sell his knowledge. Once the test towers appeared in the real world, museum relics become more valuable. Because despite being just replicas, they granted important advantages on the first stages of this game, being the most coveted one, the Eastland Great Map, which grants the user all the necessary information to reach the 10th floor. A bunch of people were fighting for it, but the only important ones were this old guy who can burn alive his enemies, and this girl that can summon the Tutankhamun statue. Everyone was scared to face this giant things, but Jinwoo didn't even bother to dodge them. She tries to intimidate him by summoning more statues, yet that was nothing for Jinwoo, and he could leave her out of combat, and she couldn't even notice it, but he wanted her to realize about the big canyon between them, so he showed her a different way to use the artifacts. Now that her knees were shaking, he asks her to hand over Tutankhamun's mask, with the way clear to the chamber where all the most precious treasure were. The old man couldn't get into it because of a barrier, and he tells the old man that the only way to get in is to make an alliance. After all, he wasn't interested in the East map. The only thing he had to do was to point his fire magic constantly to the barrier with the end of making it weaker. He must keep using his magic until everything was gathered, and seeing that he had no choice, the old man decides to trust him. All the relics were still inside, but this sword, Jinwoo knew exactly who had grabbed it, and he was pretty sure about who was responsible for that barrier, yet that wasn't the replica he was looking for. For him, that sword was just a second-class artifact. He was there just for 3 specific artifacts, relics that fits perfectly with each other, and once combined they allow the user to get this SS rank ability, the Eye of Truth, which allows to know who is lying, also grants the ability to see other state windows, as reward for combining 3 rank B relics and creating a rank S or superior. He obtained the fusion ability that allows to copy and store many abilities that are in the world and even fusion them to create stronger ones. He already had the best ability of the game, now he had to try it, and there was no better way than to try it against the powerful old man who was waiting for him outside. The only way to copy his fire powers was to make him reveal his true feelings he has been hiding under a mask. In other words, he had to make him angry, so the first thing he did was telling him that he never needed his fire powers to open the door. Everything was a tick to making him waste his mana, and now burns the east map before his eyes. He already knows the whole tower after all. The most important thing here is that the conditions were fulfilled. The old man was angry and ready to burn him alive, but Jinwoo knew flames were much more stronger. After everything Jinwoo did to him, he still wanted him as an ally. That's why, along with this girl, he gets them both under his service. The video about what happened in the museum didn't take long to go on air in the TV. Everybody wondered who that guy was and how he was so powerful. After the video, everybody is informed that the government made a decision to create a department with personnel specialized to face this new situation. The leader of this new association is Han Sangjing, who appeared on screen recruiting new people, specifically people who could find the person. In that video, a blank check was offered as reward. It doesn't matter the amount, the government is willing to satisfy in change of the service, yet, Jinwoo keeps his posture. And he is not willing to sell his information. The waiting time had ended. Now players are free to enter the tower and clear the first floor. Likewise, 2 new functions were granted. The first one was the possibility to upload videos and win 100 coins for each 10.000 reproductions, and the second is the possibility to stream. Yet the latter can only be used when fighting against a boss to get to the next phase. If a player is caught using it inappropriately, they will be punished severely. Everybody ran desperately to the tower to clear as soon as possible the first floor. But Jinwoo had other plans, a maze that nobody else knew about. But what wasn't in his plans was that these 2 people would join in his adventure. They were following him for a while, and at first they were not sure about getting in the maze, but they thought that if a level 1 is not scared to get in is because it shouldn't be so difficult to clear. Nevertheless, they couldn't be more wrong. Not even 10 minutes passed and one of them was already dead. The only one that is worth to remember is the leader Park Hana. She is the only reason why Jinwoo spared their lives. Because this girl has a very useful ability, it is called communion. This ability allows the user to gain the trust of others easily, and in order to get that ability he had to be with her for at least 240 hours, but after that time, nobody can be around them. After what happened, those bold-faced didn't care, complaining about hiding information, but Jinwoo puts them in their place. He didn't ask them to follow him after all. The dangerous thing about that maze wasn't only its changing structure but also the fearsome Minotaur living there. Everyone were scared, but that Minotaur was one of the main reasons why Jinwoo had entered that maze, because once you manage to avoid one of its attacks you gain a hidden skill called Rupture, which reduces the strength difference between its user and the most powerful enemy. Plus, every attack dodged levels up that ability. The others just looked amazed how Jinwoo was dealing with the beast as if it was just a toy. Their plan were to get into the maze, gain his trust, and once they got all the rewards, to murder him, but they didn't know that the person they wanted to kill was a monster. With that plan ruined, they tried to find a way to escape, but once you are in there is no other way to get out until you completed the maze. Going around with no clear destination was very dangerous, so they didn't have other choice but to beg him to let them join him, but they had to pay. They had to be in there for 30 days. Now that they had a lot of money, he turned around, go to the store and bought some objects that at a glance they seem to be trash, but once you fusion them you obtain a rank S artifact that increases your luck for 10 minutes. That's enough time for Jinwoo to use his booster scroll in his dagger. These scrolls are known by its low rate chances of success, but when your luck is to its maximum, the probability goes to 100%, so that's how Jinwoo became the first one, creating an object plus 10 in the whole world. 10 days had passed since they entered the maze. These 2 were the only survivors of the group and they were tired. They were surviving with a little bonfire. They slept in a moss bed, and the only thing they had to eat were those mushrooms and more moss, not to mention that the maze changed all the time and the Minotaur would visit them from time to time. At this rate they would end up dying. They didn't trust Jinwoo, they thought that once all that ended he would just get rid of them, so that's why they had to kill him. Park Hana had been cheating all this time. She had been using the streaming function to communicate with people outside. She told them to inform her brother what was happening so he could help her, but in order to get to them, it would take up to 3 weeks. The reason the Minotaur can find them is because of Jinwoo. He attracts it with these moths. So if they kill him, the Minotaur wouldn't return and they could hide until her brother rescue them. The problem was how to kill him. If they tried to kill him during sleep, probably his reflexes would wake him up, so they decide to poison him. Luckily her brother gave her a perfect poison for that. What they didn't expect was that Jinwoo knew what they were planning, so he changed their plates. He also knew that they were streaming and he reported them. Everyone watching was suspended for a month and Park Hana was punished with a hard destiny for her. By that time Jinwoo had fulfilled all the conditions. The girl was useless to him, so that's why when the Minotaur came back he didn't try to protect her. She gets mad and started threatening him, saying that her brother was with the Bodies Guild and he wouldn't forgive him. But Jinwoo shows her his real strength, a strength that not even all the guilds combined could ever match. The Minotaur finally uses its strongest ability, the Berserk, that considerably raises all its stats and even its intelligence. Jinwoo was waiting for this for a while now, because when the difficulty raises, it also raises the points he gets every time he dodges an attack. Jinwoo manages to survive the whole 5 minutes the effect lasts, so he got a lot of points and the Minotaur gets paralyzed as a consequence of using the Berserk mode. This paralysis lasts for a whole day, that enough time for Jinwoo to rest and getting his health back up for the next round. His ability was on level 57 but his final goal was to raise it to level 100 during the next 20 days. Finally the nightmare is gone. Jinwoo reached his long for level 100 and finally kills the Minotaur. Nevertheless, this was not enough reason to leave her alive. She tried to kill him after all, more than once in fact, so he asked for a reason to spare her life and join his new company. She wasn't interested in joining his company, but she definitely didn't want to die. She offered a lot of things that were useless for Jinwoo. The only thing he found interesting, and the reason he let her live, is that she offered Braham's ring, one of the best articles you can find in the first floor, and he embed her face with a soul stigma so she couldn't betray him, a contract that makes the other person obey every order given. For surviving the maze they received 5,000 coins each, though Jinwoo took all of Park Hana's coins and he said goodbye.